The red warning lights flashed across the Galactic Council chambers. Ambassador Zethkar's scaled hands trembled as he read the report again. The words made no sense, yet the data was clear. Something ancient had stirred in the void sector, something that should have stayed dead. The energy signatures match historical records, reported his aide, a young Altarian with nervous eyes. The Devourers are awakening. Zethkar felt his blood turn cold. Every child in the galaxy knew the stories. Machines that ate stars, ships that consumed entire worlds. The Devourers had nearly destroyed all life 3,000 years ago, before mysteriously vanishing into the dark spaces between galaxies. The council chamber filled with representatives from dozens of species. The crystalline beings chimed their worry in musical tones. The insectoid hive queens clicked their mandibles in distress. Even the proud warrior clans of Vega Prime looked concerned. "We need every ship," declared Fleet Admiral Vexthul, his crystal form glowing bright blue with urgency. "Every weapon. Every ally." That was when someone mentioned the humans. Zethkar almost laughed. The newest species to join galactic civilization. They had only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. Their ships were crude metal boxes that relied on chemical rockets and kinetic weapons. Primitive at best. "They have numbers," argued Councillor Melterra from her floating tank. "Their industrial capacity is impressive for such a young race." "Numbers mean nothing against the Devourers," Zethkar replied. "We need advanced plasma weapons, quantum shields, fold space technology. The humans still throw rocks." But as the reports kept coming in, as more Devourer scout ships appeared at the edge of known space, desperation set in. The galaxy needed every ship it could get. 3 days later, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Titan's Wrath and stared at the message that had just arrived from the Galactic Council. The holographic alien looked like a walking lizard wearing fancy robes. "Captain Morrison," the recording began, "I am Ambassador Zethkar of the Altarian Republic. The galaxy faces a threat beyond measure. Ancient machines called the Devourers have returned. We request Earth's assistance in this matter." The alien paused, clearly uncomfortable. "Your ships and weapons may prove useful in the coming conflict. We await your response." Jake turned to his tactical officer, Commander Lisa Bennett. She was studying the tactical data that came with the message. Her face had gone pale. "These Devourers," she said slowly. "They destroyed 17 star systems before disappearing. Their ships can eat metal, absorb energy weapons, and grow stronger from every attack." "Sounds like a challenge," replied Chief Engineer Ryan Carter from his station. The big man was grinning, which usually meant trouble. "Good thing we finished the upgrades just in time." Jake looked around his bridge crew. They were young by military standards, but they were the best Earth had to offer. Lisa Bennett had graduated top of her class from the Naval War College. Ryan Carter had designed half the systems on this ship. Navigator Amy Rodriguez could plot courses through asteroid fields that would make veteran pilots weep. The UES Titan's Wrath was humanity's first dreadnought-class vessel. 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapons and powered by fusion reactors that produced more energy than some small suns. The aliens might call it primitive, but Jake knew better. "Communications," he called to Lieutenant Kelly Barnes. "Send a reply to the Galactic Council. Tell them Earth accepts their request for assistance." "Sir," Barnes replied. "Should I mention our capabilities?" Jake smiled. "Let them find out the old-fashioned way." The next week passed in a blur of preparation. The Titan's Wrath loaded supplies and ammunition. 3 more human dreadnoughts prepared to follow. The UES Stormbringer under Captain Jack Sullivan, the UES Iron Resolve commanded by Captain Maria Santos, and the UES Defiant Dawn with Captain Tom Baker at the helm. Dr. Amanda Price, the fleet's chief medical officer, reviewed alien physiology data. If they were going into battle alongside other species, she needed to know how to treat them. "Fascinating," she murmured, studying Altarian biology. "Their scales can actually conduct electricity. And the crystalline beings are essentially living computers." Chief Petty Officer Danny Martinez supervised the loading of ammunition. Tons of tungsten rods, each one perfectly crafted and balanced. The aliens might use energy weapons, but humans had perfected the art of throwing very heavy things very fast. Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner ran final tests on the weapon systems. The mass drivers hummed with power, ready to accelerate projectiles to 17% of light speed. The point defense systems tracked imaginary targets with mechanical precision. All systems green, he reported to Jake. We're ready for whatever's out there. The jump to hyperspace was smooth. Human ships might look crude, but their engines were reliable. As they traveled toward the Kepler defense line where the Allied fleet was gathering, Jake studied the intelligence reports. The Devourers were unlike anything in known space. They weren't alive in any biological sense, but they weren't simple machines either. They learned, adapted, and evolved. Their ships could repair themselves by consuming nearby matter. Their weapons grew stronger with each battle. Captain, called Navigator Rodriguez, dropping out of hyperspace in 30 seconds. Jake straightened in his command chair. Battle stations. All hands, this is the captain. We're about to make first contact with our new allies. Remember, we represent not just our ship or our fleet, but all of humanity. Make us proud. The view screen shimmered as they dropped back into normal space. Before them stretched the largest fleet Jake had ever seen. Ships of every size and shape filled the void. Crystalline vessels that looked like living diamonds. Organic hive ships that pulsed with bioluminescent light. Sleek Altarian cruisers with energy shields that glowed like miniature suns. And there at the edge of sensor range, something dark was moving toward them. The Devourers had arrived. The Allied fleet stretched across space like a constellation of stars. Jake Morrison counted over 300 ships from 12 different species, each one representing the best technology their civilization could produce. Plasma cannons that could melt mountains, energy shields that could stop nuclear explosions, faster-than-light missiles that could strike targets in other star systems. Then the aliens saw the human ships. What are those? Fleet Admiral Vexthal's voice crackled over the communication channel. His crystalline form was glowing a confused purple color. They looked like metal boxes with engines attached. Ambassador Zethkar's reptilian features showed clear embarrassment. Those are the human vessels, Admiral. I did warn you about their primitive nature. Jake listened to the chatter on the fleet communication channels. The aliens were not impressed. The insectoid hive queens buzzed dismissively about crude kinetic weapons. The energy beings from the nebula worlds wondered why humans bothered with physical armor when shields were clearly superior. Let them talk, Commander Lisa Bennett said quietly from her station. She was monitoring the tactical displays, watching as more and more alien ships dropped out of hyperspace to join the formation. They'll change their tune soon enough. Chief Engineer Ryan Carter was grinning as he watched his fusion reactors produce clean, stable power. The alien ships used exotic matter and quantum fluctuations for energy. Impressive but complicated. Human reactors just smashed atoms together and captured the explosion. Simple, reliable, effective. Contact! Navigator Amy Rodriguez called out suddenly. Multiple objects dropping out of fold space at the system edge. The view screen shifted to show the new arrivals. They were like nothing Jake had ever seen. Black shapes that seemed to absorb light itself. Ships that moved with predatory grace, changing form as they traveled. And they were big. The smallest was the size of a human destroyer. The largest was as long as a space station. Devourer Scout Force, announced Admiral Vexthal. Estimate 27 vessels. All ships prepare for combat. The alien fleet moved forward in perfect formation. Energy shields blazed to life around crystalline ships. Plasma weapons charged with building hums. The organic vessels of the Hive Queens pulsed with bioluminescent war patterns. The Devourers responded by doing something impossible. 3 of their ships simply flew toward the nearest asteroid field and began eating it. Their hulls opened like metal flowers, revealing machinery that tore apart rock and metal and sucked it inside. Within minutes, the asteroids were gone and the Devourer ships had grown noticeably larger. They're feeding, Dr. Amanda Price observed from the medical bay, like parasites consuming their host. The first exchange of fire lit up space. Plasma beams and particle cannons struck the Devourer ships in brilliant displays of energy. For a moment, it looked like the alien weapons were working. Several enemy vessels glowed red-hot from the impacts. Then the Devourers began to change. Their hulls shifted and adapted, developing new armor configurations that deflected the energy weapons. What had been effective attacks suddenly became harmless light shows. Impossible, breathed Admiral Vexthal. Our weapons should be penetrating their defenses. They're learning, Lisa Bennett said grimly. Every shot teaches them how to defend against the next one. The Devourers struck back. Their weapons were unlike anything in the Allied database. Beams that disrupted matter at the molecular level, projectiles that phased through shields as if they didn't exist. Energy bursts that turned solid armor into expanding clouds of gas. 3 crystalline cruisers died in the first 30 seconds. A Hive Queen's bioship simply stopped moving, its entire crew consumed by some kind of viral weapon. An Altarian dreadnought's shields failed as Devourer technology adapted to their frequency. All ships. Admiral Vexthul's voice was tight with fear. Fall back to secondary positions. Maintain formation. That was when Captain Jake Morrison decided humanity had seen enough. Communications, he called to Kelly Barnes. Open a channel to all ships in the fleet. Channel open. Sir? This is Captain Morrison of the UES Titan's Wrath to all Allied vessels. We're moving to engage the enemy. Suggest you give us some room to work. Ambassador Zethkar's voice cut across the channel. Captain Morrison, with respect, your weapons are ineffective against Devourer adaptive armor. Our most advanced plasma cannons barely scratched them. Jake looked at his tactical officer. Alex Turner was running final targeting calculations on the mass drivers. The weapons were fully charged and ready to fire. Ambassador, Jake replied calmly, you're absolutely right. Our weapons are different from yours. Alex, you have permission to fire. The UES Titan's Wrath launched its first salvo. 6 tungsten rods, each one weighing 10 tons and moving at 17% of light speed. They covered the distance to the nearest Devourer ship in less than 3 seconds. The impact was spectacular. The enemy vessel's adaptive armor, designed to deflect energy weapons and absorb plasma, was completely useless against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The tungsten rods punched through the hull like it was made of paper. The Devourer ship exploded in a chain reaction that lit up the darkness of space. Dead silence filled the communication. Channels, target destroyed, Alex Turner reported with professional calm. Reloading mass drivers. The second human salvo targeted the largest Devourer vessel, the one that had been consuming asteroids. 12 tungsten rods struck it simultaneously. The enemy ship tried to adapt, shifting its hull configuration and extending defensive fields. It didn't matter. Kinetic energy was kinetic energy. Physics was physics. The massive ship broke apart like a children's toy. Impossible, whispered Admiral Vexthul. How are you doing this? Simple physics, replied Chief Engineer Carter cheerfully. You can't adapt to a 10-ton rod moving at 50,000 kilometers per second. Newton's laws don't care about your fancy technology. The Devourers seemed stunned by this development. Their scouts had been destroyed by weapons they couldn't understand or counter. They began to retreat, folding space around themselves to escape. But Jake wasn't finished. All ships pursue and engage. Don't let them report back to their main force. The human fleet moved forward like avenging angels. The UES Stormbringer under Captain Jack Sullivan took the lead, her mass drivers speaking with mechanical precision. The UES Iron Resolve and UES Defiant Dawn flanked the enemy formation, cutting off escape routes. Within 10 minutes, the entire Devourer scout force was debris floating in space. As the human ships returned to formation, every alien vessel they passed flashed their running lights in salute. The dismissive chatter had been replaced by respectful silence. Ambassador Zethkar's voice came over the communication channel, no longer carrying its previous condescending tone. Captain Morrison, the Galactic Council would like to discuss your tactical capabilities at your earliest convenience. Jake smiled as he looked out at the Allied fleet. Humanity had just announced its presence to the galaxy in the most direct way possible. We'll be happy to share what we know, Ambassador. After all, we're all on the same side now. News of the human victory spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within hours, every major news network was broadcasting footage of primitive human ships destroying advanced Devourer technology with simple kinetic weapons. The images were impossible to ignore, massive alien vessels exploding under the impact of what amounted to very fast rocks. Jake Morrison stood in the briefing room of the UES Titan's Wrath, facing holographic representatives from 17 different species. 3 days ago, most of them had never heard of humanity. Now they were all asking the same question. How had humans done the impossible? The principle is simple, explained Commander Sarah Mitchell, the Human Battle Group's strategic planner. Her presentation showed basic physics equations that even the most advanced alien civilizations had somehow overlooked in their rush toward exotic technologies. Kinetic energy equals 1/2 mass times velocity squared. Increase the velocity enough and even a small mass becomes devastatingly effective. The crystalline being representing the hegemony chimed in confusion. But surely energy weapons are more efficient. Our plasma cannons can adjust frequency, modulate output, and adapt to enemy defenses. That's exactly the problem, Sarah replied. Anything that can adapt can be countered. But you can't adapt to physics. A tungsten rod moving at relativistic speed doesn't care about your armor type or shield frequency. It just hits you with the force of a nuclear explosion. Ambassador Zethkar's hologram flickered as he processed this information. You're saying that by pursuing more advanced technology, we made ourselves vulnerable to simpler solutions? Chief Engineer Ryan Carter nodded enthusiastically. Your ships are amazing, don't get me wrong. But they're built around the idea that more complex is better. Our ships are built around the idea that if it works, don't fix it. The briefing continued for hours. The aliens wanted to know everything about human military doctrine. How did human ships survive without energy shields? Why did they use physical armor instead of deflector fields? How could their targeting systems be so accurate with such primitive computers? Dr. Amanda Price found herself overwhelmed with requests from alien medical staff. They wanted to understand human biology, human psychology, human decision-making processes. How did humans remain calm under extreme pressure? Why were they willing to risk their lives for strangers? We're pack hunters, she explained to a group of fascinated xenobiologists. Humans evolved as social creatures. We instinctively protect the group, even if the group includes people we've never met before. Meanwhile, the war continued. More devourer forces appeared at the edges of known space, testing defenses and probing for weaknesses. The aliens had retrofitted some of their ships with human-designed kinetic weapons, but the results were mixed. Their targeting systems weren't designed for projectile weapons. Their power generation couldn't handle the massive energy requirements of human-style mass drivers. That was when Captain Jack Sullivan of the UES Stormbringer made his mark on galactic history, the Battle of Centauri. Gate began when a large devourer force attacked the system's main shipping routes. 40 enemy vessels, each one larger and more advanced than the scouts that had been destroyed earlier. The local defense fleet included ships from 6 different species, all equipped with the latest hybrid weapons combining alien technology with human kinetic principles. It wasn't enough. The Devourers had learned from their previous defeats. Their ships now carried adaptive armor specifically designed to deflect kinetic weapons. Their energy shields had been modified to absorb and redirect projectile impacts. The Allied fleet was taking heavy casualties when Captain Sullivan arrived with 3 human destroyers. His ships were smaller than the alien cruisers, lighter than the crystalline dreadnoughts, and armed with what looked like obsolete weapons compared to the hybrid systems the other ships carried. But Sullivan had something the aliens didn't understand: tactical flexibility. Instead of engaging in a direct firefight, he ordered his ships to scatter. The UES Stormbringer accelerated toward the largest Devourer vessel, firing its mass drivers in rapid bursts. The enemy ship's adaptive armor deflected the first salvo just as predicted. That was when Sullivan revealed his true strategy. As his ship closed distance with the enemy, he suddenly changed course and fired directly into the Devourer's engine emissions. The tungsten rods followed the exhaust trail right back to its source, bypassing the adaptive armor entirely and striking the ship's reactor core. The explosion took out 3 nearby Devourer vessels. The other human captains immediately understood and copied the tactic. They used the enemy's own technology against them, targeting exhaust ports, sensor arrays, and weapon emission points, places where the adaptive armor couldn't be deployed without interfering with the ship's basic functions. Chief Petty Officer Danny Martinez, monitoring the battle from the Titan's wrath, whistled in appreciation. Captain Sullivan just wrote a new chapter in the tactical manual. The Devourers tried to adapt again, modifying their ships to protect vulnerable areas. But every change created new weaknesses. When they armored their exhaust ports, their engines overheated. When they shielded their sensors, their targeting accuracy dropped. When they protected their weapons, their rate of fire decreased. They're locked in an evolutionary arms race with themselves, observed Lisa Bennett. Every adaptation creates a new vulnerability. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 37 Devourer ships had been destroyed or disabled. The Allied fleet had lost only 4 vessels, all of them alien ships that had tried to match the human tactics without understanding the underlying principles. As the human ships regrouped, They found themselves surrounded by alien vessels flashing their running lights in salute, the universal sign of respect between military forces. Admiral Vexthol's crystalline form appeared on the communication screen, glowing bright gold with what Jake had learned was the hegemony's equivalent of a smile. Captain Morrison, Captain Sullivan, I believe it's time we discussed a more formal arrangement. What did you have in mind? Jake asked. Joint command structure. Integrated training programs. Technology sharing agreements. The Admiral paused. The galaxy needs to learn from humanity and quickly. Our intelligence suggests the Devourers are mobilizing their main fleet. Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner looked up from his tactical displays. How main are we talking about, sir? Admiral Vexthol's glow dimmed to a worried blue. Historical records indicate thousands of ships, perhaps tens of thousands, all converging on the galactic core. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. The scout forces and advance groups they had been fighting were just the beginning. Somewhere in the dark spaces between stars, an armada beyond imagination was preparing for war. Well, Captain Sullivan's voice came over the communication channel. Looks like we're going to need a bigger fleet. Jake looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These young humans who had signed up to explore the stars now found themselves defending an entire galaxy. But instead of fear, he saw determination. Instead of doubt, he saw resolve. Admiral, he said finally, humanity accepts your proposal. Let's teach the galaxy how to fight. The captured Devourer data core sat in the UES Titan's Wrath's analysis lab like a piece of crystallized nightmares. It had taken 3 weeks for the combined teams of human and alien scientists to crack its encryption, and when they finally succeeded, the information inside made everyone wish they had failed. The Primarch, Dr. Amanda Price read from the translated files, her voice barely above a whisper. A command vessel the size of a small moon, hidden in the galactic core for 3,000 years. It's been slowly rebuilding the Devourer fleet, growing stronger with each passing century. Jake Morrison stared at the holographic display, showing the enemy plan. Thousands of Devourer ships were converging on the galactic core from every direction. Once they reached the Primarch, it would awaken fully and lead them on a campaign to consume every inhabited world in the galaxy. How long do we have? He asked. Navigator Amy Rodriguez consulted her calculations. Based on the fleet movements we've detected, maybe 2 weeks. 3 at the most. Ambassador Zethkar's reptilian features showed deep concern. Captain Morrison, I must be honest with you. The galactic core is one of the most dangerous regions in known space. The gravitational anomalies alone could tear apart our ships. The radiation levels would kill most organic life forms within hours. Most organic life forms, repeated Chief Engineer Ryan Carter with a grin. Good thing humans are stubborn. The next week became a frantic race against time. The Allied fleet grew to over 1,000 ships as every species contributed their fastest vessels. The aliens had learned much from fighting alongside humans, and their ships now carried hybrid weapons that combined kinetic projectiles with energy delivery systems. But Jake knew it wouldn't be enough. The Primarch was ancient, intelligent, and had been preparing for this moment for millennia. It would have defenses that no one had ever imagined. That was when Lieutenant Colonel Tracy Adams came up with her insane plan. We can't fight the Primarch ship to ship, she explained to the command staff. It's too big, too well defended. But every ship has vulnerable points. Command centers, power sources, critical system nodes. If we could get a team inside. A boarding action? Admiral Vexthol's crystalline form flickered with disbelief. On a moon-sized vessel filled with hostile machines? That would be suicide. Tracy smiled, and Jake recognized the expression. It was the same look Ryan Carter got when he was about to do something impossible with the engines. Only if you're thinking conventionally, sir. The journey to the galactic core tested every system on every ship in the fleet. The space around the galaxy's central black hole was a nightmare of twisted gravity and lethal radiation. Ships that had seemed indestructible in normal space groaned and buckled under the strain. Chief Petty Officer Danny Martinez worked 18-hour shifts, keeping the human ships operational. The fusion reactors that had seemed so crude compared to alien technology proved their worth, providing steady power when exotic matter drives failed and quantum generators overloaded. Human engineering, he muttered as he repaired another system. Built to last, built to work, built to keep working when everything else falls apart. Dr. Amanda Price had her hands full treating radiation sickness in crew members from different species. Human physiology proved remarkably resistant to the conditions near the galactic core, something that both amazed and worried the alien medical staff. "Your species evolved on a planet with a magnetic field and an ozone layer," explained one of the crystalline medics. "Most of us come from worlds with perfect environmental control. We're not built for this kind of punishment." "Lucky for us," Amanda replied. "Humans are built for punishment." They found the Primarch exactly where the data core had indicated, hidden in the gravitational shadow of a massive gas giant. The ancient vessel was beyond anything Jake had imagined. It wasn't just large. It was a mobile space station, bristling with weapons that could destroy planets and surrounded by a fleet of newly constructed Devourer ships. "Energy readings are off the scale," reported Alex Turner from his tactical station. "That thing has more firepower than our entire fleet combined." The battle began before they were fully prepared. Devourer ships poured out of the Primarch like angry insects, their weapons already adapted to counter the hybrid systems the Allied fleet had been using. The aliens had taught the galaxy to fight like humans, but the Devourers had learned to fight like everything. "All ships, engage at maximum range," ordered Admiral Vexthul. "Do not let them close to boarding distance." The space around the galactic core became a storm of fire and metal. Plasma beams and kinetic rounds crossed paths in deadly geometric patterns. Ships exploded in silent fireballs while others limped away trailing atmosphere and debris. The UES Stormbringer took a direct hit that would have vaporized any other vessel. But Captain Jack Sullivan kept fighting with half his ship missing and his crew breathing recycled air. The crystalline dreadnought Harmony's Edge shattered like glass under Devourer fire, but not before taking 3 enemy cruisers with her. Through it all, the Primarch continued its awakening process. Ancient systems came online one by one, each activation making the massive vessel more dangerous. Energy fields that could disrupt matter at the quantum level, weapons that fired miniature black holes, defense systems that learned and adapted faster than anything the galaxy had ever encountered. "We're losing," Lisa Bennett reported grimly. "The enemy fleet is just too large, and the Primarch isn't even fully active yet." That was when Tracy Adams made her move. Titan's Wrath. "This is Strike Team Alpha." Her voice crackled over the communication system. "We're beginning our approach to the target." Jake watched on his tactical display as a single human assault shuttle, barely larger than a fighter, accelerated toward the Primarch. It was insane. The ancient vessel's point defense systems could vaporize 1,000 such small craft without effort. Except Tracy wasn't flying straight toward the enemy ship. She was using the gravitational chaos of the galactic core itself as cover, skipping her shuttle across gravity wells and magnetic field lines like a stone across water. The Primarch's sensors, designed to track large vessels in normal space, couldn't lock onto such an erratic target. "How is she doing that?" breathed Navigator Rodriguez. "The gravitational stress should tear that shuttle apart." "She's not fighting the gravity," Ryan Carter realized. "She's surfing it, using the Primarch's own mass as a slingshot." The shuttle disappeared into the ancient vessel's superstructure, too small to trigger the major defense systems. Tracy and her team were inside the enemy ship, racing through corridors that had been empty for 3 millennia. "Strike Team Alpha to Fleet Command." Tracy's voice was tight with concentration. "We've located what looks like a central control node. Beginning placement of charges." The Primarch seemed to sense the intrusion. Internal defense systems that had been dormant for eons suddenly activated. Security drones and automated weapons turned their attention inward, hunting for the small group of humans who dared to invade their sanctuary. Outside, the battle continued to rage. More Allied ships fell to the ever-adapting Devourer fleet. The UES Iron Resolve sacrificed herself to save a wounded crystalline cruiser. The Hive Queen bioship Living Memory held off 12 enemy vessels before finally succumbing to concentrated fire. "Tracy," Jake called into his communicator, "whatever you're going to do, do it fast. We can't hold them much longer." "Almost there," came the reply. "Just need to..." "Got it." Charges set everyone out. The explosion, when it came, was visible even from the edge of the star system. Not the flashy fireworks of a conventional detonation, but the slow, inevitable collapse of systems that had kept an impossible machine running for thousands of years. The Primarch's awakening process stuttered and failed. Ancient weapons powered down. The massive vessel's coordination of the Devourer fleet dissolved into chaos as individual ship commanders, suddenly found themselves cut off from their supreme intelligence. All ships. Jake broadcast to the Allied fleet. The enemy command structure is down. Press the attack. The tide of battle turned in minutes. Devourer ships that had been fighting with perfect coordination now struggled against each other for resources and targets. The Allied fleet, bloodied but not broken, struck back with everything they had. When the last enemy vessel was destroyed, the galactic core fell silent except for the background radiation of creation itself. The Primarch, dark and lifeless, drifted among the debris of its fleet like a monument to overconfidence. But the cost had been terrible. Of the 1,000 ships that had entered the galactic core, fewer than 200 remained operational. Good beings from dozens of worlds had given their lives to stop an ancient evil from consuming the galaxy. Jake stood on his damaged bridge and looked out at the wreckage of the greatest space battle in recorded history. They had won, but victory felt hollow when so many brave souls had paid the price. "Captain," Kelly Barnes called from her communication station, "we're receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. They know what happened here. They know what we accomplished. And what we lost," Jake replied quietly. Tracy Adams' shuttle limped back to the Titan's Wrath, her team alive but exhausted. As she stepped onto the bridge, still wearing her battle-scarred armor, she gave Jake a tired smile. 3 months after the Battle of the Galactic Core, Jake Morrison stood in the observation deck of the UES Titan's Wrath and watched something he had never expected to see. Alien ships were forming honor guards around the human vessels as they limped back toward civilized space. The journey home had been slow. Many of the surviving ships were barely holding together after the nightmare battle in the Galactic Core, but everywhere they stopped, every system they passed through, the response was the same. Entire planetary populations turned out to watch the battered fleet pass by. Messages of gratitude poured in from species Jake had never even heard of. "It's remarkable," observed Dr. Amanda Price as she joined him at the observation window. Her medical bay had been treating wounded from a dozen different species, and she had learned more about alien biology in 3 months than most xenobiologists learned in their entire careers. 6 months ago, most of the galaxy saw humans as primitive newcomers. Now they're calling us the Guardians of the Galaxy. "I never asked to be a Guardian," Jake replied, watching as a crystalline heavy cruiser executed a perfect formation salute. "I just wanted to explore the stars and maybe make some friends along the way." "Sometimes what we want and what the galaxy needs aren't the same thing," Amanda said softly. The bridge chimed with an incoming communication. Kelly Barnes looked up from her station. "Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Parker wants to speak with you directly." Jake made his way back to the command chair. Still strange after all these months in space. The holographic display activated to show Admiral Sarah Parker, the woman who had given him command of the Titan's Wrath what felt like a lifetime ago. "Captain Morrison," she began, and Jake was surprised to see tears in her eyes. "I've been following the reports from the Galactic Core. What you and your crews accomplished out there. There aren't words for it. We did what had to be done, Admiral. Any human crew would have done the same." "That's exactly what makes you extraordinary," Parker replied. "Captain, I'm calling to inform you that Earth has received formal requests from 47 different species to establish permanent defense agreements. They want human ships and human officers stationed in their systems. They want their military personnel to train alongside ours." Jake looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These young people who had signed up for exploration and discovery had become the veterans of the greatest space battle in galactic history. They had seen things no human had ever seen, done things that would be remembered for thousands of years. "What about the crew?" he asked. "They've been through enough. They deserve to go home, see their families." Chief Engineer Ryan Carter looked up from his station, where he was still nursing the damaged fusion reactors. "With respect, Captain, this is our home now. Out here among the stars with people who need our help." Navigator Amy Rodriguez nodded in agreement. "Earth will always be where we came from, but the galaxy is where we belong now." Similar conversations were happening on ships throughout the human fleet. Captain Jack Sullivan of the Stormbringer had already volunteered his crew for extended duty. Captain Maria Santos was working with alien engineers to design new hybrid vessels that combined human reliability with alien innovation. The transformation went beyond just military cooperation. Human industrial techniques were being adapted across the galaxy. The simple, robust engineering that had kept human ships running in the lethal environment of the galactic core was exactly what many alien civilizations needed to improve their own technology. Lieutenant Colonel Tracy Adams found herself inundated with requests from alien special forces units who wanted to learn human boarding techniques. Her insane assault on the Primarch had become legendary, studied in military academies across dozens of worlds. The funny thing, she told Jake during one of their tactical briefings, is that they think what we did was impossible. But for humans, impossible just means you haven't figured out how to do it yet. Chief Petty Officer Danny Martinez had become something of a celebrity among alien engineers. His ability to keep human ships running under impossible conditions had earned him job offers from every major spacefaring civilization. He turned them all down. Human ships need human engineers, he said simply. Besides, somebody has to teach these aliens how to build things that actually work when everything goes wrong. The political changes were just as dramatic. Ambassador Zethkar, once dismissive of human capabilities, now found himself serving as the primary liaison between Earth and the Galactic Council. The reptilian diplomat had become one of humanity's strongest advocates. "Your species has taught us something we had forgotten," he told Jake during a formal ceremony marking the establishment of the Human Defense Initiative. "That strength isn't about having the most advanced technology or the biggest weapons. It's about having the courage to stand up when evil threatens the innocent, regardless of the cost." Dr. Amanda Price had been offered positions at the most prestigious medical research facilities in the galaxy, but she chose to stay with the fleet. Her work treating alien physiology had opened up entirely new fields of xenomedicine, and her insights into human resilience were helping other species adapt to the harsh realities of space warfare. "Humans heal differently than other species," she explained to a gathering of alien medical professionals. "Not just physically, but emotionally. We form bonds with people we've never met. We fight for causes that don't directly benefit us. We sacrifice ourselves for the greater good. These aren't weaknesses to be overcome. They're strengths to be celebrated." As the months passed, the Human Defense Initiative grew beyond anything anyone had imagined. New ships were being built to human specifications but with alien enhancements. Training facilities were established where the best officers from across the galaxy could learn to fight alongside humans. The UES Titan's Wrath became the flagship of a new kind of fleet. Multi-species crews working together with human tactical doctrine and alien technological innovation. Ships that could survive in environments that would destroy traditional vessels. Crews that could adapt to any situation because they had learned to think like humans while retaining their own species' unique advantages. Jake found himself promoted to Fleet Admiral, commanding not just human ships but vessels from across the galaxy. It was a responsibility he had never wanted but had learned to accept. Standing on the bridge of his flagship, watching as construction began on humanity's newest dreadnought, he reflected on how much had changed. The galaxy was safer now, protected by an alliance forged in the fires of desperate battle. Ancient threats had been defeated not through superior technology, but through courage, determination, and the willingness to sacrifice everything for the greater good. "Admiral," called Communications Officer Kelly Barnes, now wearing the insignia of a lieutenant commander, "we're receiving distress signals from the Outer Rim territories. Unknown hostiles, possibly another ancient threat awakening." Jake smiled as he felt the familiar stirring of anticipation. There were always new challenges, new threats, new reasons to venture into the unknown and defend those who couldn't defend themselves. "Plot a course," he ordered. "All ships prepare for jump to hyperspace. Looks like the galaxy needs its guardians again." As the human-led fleet began its jump toward whatever new danger awaited, Jake thought about the young captain who had first received that desperate message from Ambassador Zethkar. That man had wanted to explore the stars and make friends. He had ended up doing both in ways he never could have imagined. The UES Titan's Wrath disappeared into hyperspace, leading a fleet that represented the best of dozens of civilizations united under a single banner. Behind them they left a galaxy forever changed by the courage of a species that had dared to stand up when others fell back. Ahead of them lay new adventures, new challenges, and new opportunities to prove that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from advanced technology, but from an unbreakable will to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Earth's mightiest ship had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same.